All right, it's 6 o'clock, May 18th. This is the calling the meeting, the informal meeting of the Common Council to order. If we could have a roll call.
President Morris.
Sorry?
President Morris.
Yes, I'm here.
Council
I'll
members,
turn up the hearing.
council members, Adler,
Here.
Fernhagen, I see.
Here.
Roney. See.
Here.
Sarwar.
Yeah.
Foster.
Here.
Roberts. Here. Felton. Here. Bolo. Cousin. Absent. Moranci.
Here. Okay. So the minutes from April have been placed on file. Department reports have been placed on file. And before we go into the meeting minutes, the report from the committees, I believe we have a representative from Novella online. Should be Roseanne.
That's me. Hello.
Who's online from Labella?
Roseanne Lubeck.
Hi. So this evening we have a resolution that Mayor Ferris wanted us to vote on. The deadline for the application for this particular grant is the same day as our formal meeting, actually. And so in order to review this, Labella, which is the group that is working with the mayor's office, has come to do a presentation on this particular project.
I was just going to explain a little bit about what SS4A is. So what I'm working on with the mayor's office is an application for the Safe Streets for All grant. So what we're working on putting together would be a safety action plan, which would then allow the city of Hudson to apply for implementation funding. There's about $1 billion of federal funding in this program each year. In order to be eligible for the implementation grant, you would need to have a certified Safe Streets for All action plan, which is the first step that we are initiating now. So the resolution is to approve us applying for the grant, which would have a 20% local match, but is 80% funded by the federal government. Grant, and the application has we're writing it for you for free.
So can you give a little bit more detail on what the grant is for Safe Streets, and how this process works?
Sure. So Safe Streets for All is a federal program of the U.S. Department of Transportation. Any local municipality can apply for this, which is really unique with a federal government grant. Usually you have to be an MPO or a state. So this is one of the only programs that the city of Hudson can apply for directly and receive the funds directly from the federal government, which is also true of implementation. So once we have the SS4A plan and you've identified, what we'll work on you with in this step is identifying a high injury network, making sure that you have appropriate cost estimated for any work that would come out of this and roadway improvements and enhancements. And then we can then go back to the SS4A program to get those projects funded. So this first step is for that. So like I said, SS4A, it's been around since the IIJA. So it's 5 years in. City of Hudson has not received anything, neither has Columbia County. And you would need this plan to then be able to do the implementation work.
So one of the things that was listed in the resolution was that this would involve demonstration projects. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We can work with you to determine where you would want to do something called a demonstration project. A demonstration project is a more temporary application, and that can be as quick as just a day or even a couple of weeks, or something that's more permanent, like a paint and post project within the city of Hudson, where you would want to test some of the improvements that we're talking about doing. I know that there are a few intersections that we're already working with you on to see if there are ways that we can enhance them, but this could be another way for us to do some quick improvements that are funded, that we can get funding for, to be able to do that more quickly. So it would be probably based on the SS4A schedule, somewhere in towards the end of 2027 that we would be able to kick off that work.
So any questions from council members? Dominic?
Roseanne, so these projects, who's picking the projects?
We would be doing a very extensive public engagement process and working with the city and the stakeholders that the city identifies to put together a plan for what those projects would be. So you would be picking the projects, really.
Well, for example, right, for the action plan, like, my thought is to upgrade, intersections like Stewart's and, State Street and, where it's incorporated with a crosswalk and things like that. So is that going to be part of the plan and the initial action plan? Like, updating intersections, crosswalks and things like that?
So there will be a couple of ways that we look at how you can update your intersections. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing is actually improving safety. So without knowing the exact circumstances of what's happening at that intersection, what the crash data is telling us, what the speed data and the traffic data are saying, what we'll want to know is what's the level of effort that we would need to improve the highest impact intersections in Hudson, because we might find that the ones that need the most investment aren't suitable for a demonstration project, because what we can do there wouldn't make it safe enough. I'm struggling to figure out how to explain this. If you have a high-speed intersection, for example, and it's something that we don't think we can fix with a demonstration project because it would actually end up putting people more at risk, that's something that we would suggest for a capital project rather than a demonstration project. But I know that there are intersections within the city that we've identified, that have been identified in other projects that would be appropriate for a demonstration project. But that is something that we would want to put through a public process before we make any determinations on where it would go.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yeah, can we mark this grant with another project like we have?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Can we mark this grant with another project or no, you have to be like new project?
It needs to be a standalone. The action plan itself really can't go with anything else. This is a specific grant that does only this one thing, but we can do a demonstration project within it that allows for impact immediately.
So the study itself, it's whatever it's called, the outcome of this is required for the application for the budget. But what is the time frame you think for beginning to end on doing the project?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? It's just a little.
What is the time frame for beginning to end for this project, assuming that we get the grant?
So it can take quite a while to get under contract with these. I don't want to give you any, false expectations. So the application is due in mid-May. We would find out towards the end of the year, towards the fall, if you received the grant, and then it can take over a year, up to a year to a year and a half to get under contract with the feds to be able to get the money to do the work. So like I said, we probably wouldn't be able to start this work from like a year and 3/4, but that's again the first step, and you won't be eligible for any implementation funding otherwise. And they are looking at continuing and reauthorizing this program for another 5 years. So it's still worth it to go after it now, looking long-term, so that you're eligible for that funding.
So assuming we get the grant and we find out at the end of this year that we've received the grant, is that money that is provided to the city upfront to do the study, or do we have to do it and then get reimbursed?
It's a reimbursement process.
So we have to front $225,000.
Yes, but you can bill in stages and you don't have to do it all. I would expect the timeline for the project to be 12 months. So you don't have to bill it all at once at the end, you can bill it throughout.
Any other questions we have? Yes, Jason?
Roseanne, you mentioned, the project that we're, design project or investigation project that we're starting with Lavella. And I'm just mostly telling the audience that, we're looking at the hospital intersection, the triangle, and, circulation around the public square. And part of, you mentioned implementation. If we study those areas, we find we need help, that would lead to funding, implementation through the SS4.
Exactly. This really unlocks the majority of that $1 billion in federal funding is for implementation grants, and this allows you to access those implementation grants. The study that we're doing with you on just those intersections does not fulfill the requirements. There's a 2-page self-certification form. It will need to be adopted by council. There's a pretty strict process to get these action plans adopted, and then you would be able to apply for implementation. So they do go hand in hand.
Any other council members or questions? Gary, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you. Hello, I'm Gary Fernhagen. So would we be reimbursed for the demonstration project?
Yes, that's within the cost of the grant.
And
The
the
escrow.
award does not happen until after the demonstration?
No. The award would be towards probably the end of this year. We would do the demonstration project as a part of that 12-month timeline when we build the action plan. And then you would be reimbursed by the federal government as part of that process.
Does the are there limitations or constricted scope of the demonstration? In other words, we do one demonstration and we address one intersection, but that's a one-off, and all of the other projects we'd like to tackle are somewhat different.
So without going into like how we would need to do a little bit of the plan, and like this all is very rooted in data analysis. For SS4A, you have to have all of your crash data, you have to have intersection data, you have to have all of that down to the level of where it's going to be. Once we look at that, a couple of intersections are going to rise to the top. I already know that just from what I've looked at in your 5-year crash data, preparing the application and just like putting together if this is a good pursuit, I know that you have 3 roadways that are responsible for almost half, not responsible, but like 40% of your serious injuries happen on just 3 roadways. So how can we leverage this demonstration project to do either an intersection or a short corridor? There's not a ton of finances available to do the demonstration project. A lot of the times those are also done in a separate grant, which is called a supplement, a planning supplement, but we can incorporate a small demonstration while also getting you the plan that gets you more demonstration and implementation funding. I hope that answered your question.
What are the 3 roadways that you've identified?
I knew I should have known that you were going to ask me that, and I don't have it open in front of me, but give me a second and I can tell you. I know that one of them is Worth.
Well,
It
roads, not
is.
intersections, roadways, Ward, where
We
don't
are
have too many roads.
seeing
Right.
I'm gonna say Columbia.
is New York 9G, New York 23B.
Yep.
So Columbia and 3rd Street, Green Street, and Worth Avenue.
Pretty much the whole town. Okay, so the thing that's concerning me that is news to me, is that this is a reimbursable project. And it's not clear to me that we could apply as we go through, we could apply for reimbursement, or we have to wait until we have our full safety plan before receiving reimbursement in full. So which of those is true? Do we wait until we have the safety plan and then we submit everything and we get paid the 225 or whatever it is from the feds? well, actually, it would be 180, I think, because we have 45 match. Can we get paid incrementally as we go through it? As we reach certain milestones, can we submit and get paid?
I'm looking now. It's my experience with these that my client, I've been doing safety projects and doing this work for over 10 years, and I've been doing SS4A plans since the program started. And my clients have done multiple submissions for reimbursement throughout the year. I will try to find exact information on what is needed for that, but you do not have to wait until the end to be reimbursed. No, you don't have to wait until the end of it to be reimbursed.
You have Heather and then you have Gary.
Yeah, Heather, I was actually gonna call on you.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to ask Roseanne. Hi, Roseanne. My name's Heather. I'm the city treasurer. As part of Labella's agreement to apply for this grant, do the services also include grant administration, including developing and submitting reimbursement requests?
When you set up your contractor, that would be something that I would suggest having in your contract for the execution of the action plan, if that's something that you are looking for. As a part of what we're doing, it does not include grant administration. Right
So
now.
for
It
this
would be-
200,000 and change project that you're managing, you're not doing the administration or the reimbursement requests?
Not as a part of the pro bono work. If it's one, I would suggest building that into the contract with the contractor who you select to do the action plan.
I just want to make sure I understand the language. When you say action plan, do you mean the action plan of implementing the demonstration projects and identifying the projects and all of that? That's what you mean by action plan?
So
Or do you
the
mean the
action
plan
the
after
action
the
plan
plan
is
is
the
done?
full project. So everything within that, from the plan itself, doing the demonstration project, doing all of the data analysis, getting your policy set, having all of your resolutions prepared so that you have a self-certification form that makes you eligible for everything. That's all action plan. That's all within that $225,000 grant that we are writing. So my suggestion would be, if you want to have grant administration and the reimbursable information done as a part of the contract that you're putting together for that, it should go with that and not with what we are preparing right now, because we're done with this segment when the grant is submitted. Does that make sense?
Heather, my understanding is that the deliverable here is the safety action plan, and that deliverable is what is the prerequisite for applying for federal funding.
Correct, but we're going to be coming out of pocket for over $200,000 and need
Correct.
to get that money reimbursed. And I'm just trying to figure out
Correct.
who is doing that work.
That was new information for me. I did not understand that this was not a grant that we got upfront. And the fact that it's not reimbursable until the end, it's not a question of finding $45,000, it's a question of finding $225,000, which is a very big difference.
Yeah.
And with not knowing, maybe we can do milestone billing, maybe we can't. I'm not sure that we have enough information right now to vote in favor of this. Jason, do you want to comment?
Let Heather go.
I would just say that this situation as a whole is not unusual. 90% of the grants that we get are reimbursable. For something in this amount, assuming that we're in decent shape, because it's not a huge amount of money, as we would generally do an interfund loan that would get paid back to the general fund out of the capital fund. So I'm less concerned about that. Also, if we're not even going to find out until the end of the year if we're getting it or not, it's something we might be able to roll into borrowing if we need to, if our cash flow is that tight. My concern is frankly just who is responsible for making sure that the city gets the money that's expended back by tracking the expenses, submitting the reimbursements to the federal government, because that is work that I would like to assume is not our responsibility directly to do because we don't have those resources.
That would have to be built into how the, applications put together. So we would have to have an administrative portion in here. Grant
Roseanne, is it your sense that we can request money for grant administrations out of that pool of money?
I will need to double check that, but I don't know why we couldn't prepare the invoice as a part of that grant because it's professional services. I just want to make sure there are extensive, there's like trainings, they do onboardings for grant recipients. So there's a lot of information around this. So I would want to get into the details of that to tell you, but I know that payment is within 30 to 60 days. So it's not, a 6 month, you don't have to wait until the end. You can do multiple submissions and it'll come every 30 days. You just need to have an invoice, for example, a consultant invoice, or cost invoice, for example, with the demonstration to be able to do that. And then you'll receive it through their Delphi project program is what it says. But I will look into more about what's in there. I think that you can. So that's all I can say.
Just to make sure we're saying the same thing. The question is whether we can take some portion of this grant money and say that it will be allocated toward paying somebody to do the grant administration, including reimbursements. That's what I'm asking.
Like a city staff member or a consultant?
No, a consultant.
I believe that yes, you can.
Okay.
It's all part of professional services.
Gary, you had your hand raised?
I do. One other question, and my apologies if this is public knowledge, but Roseanne, pardon my bluntness, why are you doing it pro bono?
We have done several of these for communities throughout New York, and it is the first step. We see value in putting the grants together and building the relationship. I would love to do the work because we're doing a lot here to try to build a story around it. And I think that there's a compelling reason to do it, but I want to make sure that we're following your protocol for how you would select a consultant. We just want to help you open the door because in what we've been talking about with these 3 intersections, with everything that you have wanting to move forward in the city of Hudson, this is a necessary step to get you where you want to go. And it's a lot. I've done so many of these at this point. It makes sense for me to do it with you and get you there, and then we can figure out the rest later.
Thank you.
We have another question here from.
I'm sorry, so it's only these 3 intersections that are going to be studied?
No.
No, okay,
No.
fine. So my other question is, okay, so once we create this action plan, right? So that, it goes to the federal government to see if we can get grant money to actually implement the action plan. How many municipalities are going against how much money? Do we know at this point? What are our chances? Once we actually do this, what are our chances of this actually happening?
It's hard to dig into the exact details because there are a lot of restrictions on where the money goes and how. So part of it is that no state can receive more than a certain percentage. I think it's 10%. So you are not competing against everybody nationally necessarily, but also areas of New York for your implementation grant. While planning is lower dollar and most of the money goes to implementation, the implementation grants are usually somewhere more in the $25 to $40 million range. So they're big chunks. There's usually about 150. I think the success rate is 40%. But if you put together a good application and you can provide the cost benefit and you have a compelling reason, which is what we do with the action plan, is to make sure that you are setting up winning projects, then you can have success with the program. I can't say exactly what the win rate is because they haven't fully released how many people are actually going for it. So I can't do all the division myself to find a win rate, but no state can get more than 10%. So you want to get ahead of other New York areas that are going to be going for this maybe a couple years behind you.
But in the past, what has the success rate been for other areas of, in our size and in our area of upstate New York? I mean, 10%, 40%?
I'm sorry,
Sure.
can you say that one more time?
What is the success rate of getting the funding, of similar areas of our size and from our location?
I can't answer that question because the federal government hasn't released how many people apply. They only release the number of people who win. So I can't say exactly what the success rate is. I just know that it has been publicly said it is estimated to be 40% win rate, but there is no division of whether that's planning or implementation or small or large municipalities. That's the only information that's been shared publicly.
This is the first time that this grant has been available.
This is the first time what?
Is it the first time that this federal grant has been available?
It's 5 years old. So this is the 5th round.
Roseanne, how do they rate the projects in terms of, is there rubrics and how do they rate other projects? And like, if we're low on the threshold of other products being more, important, how do they decide that?
There are merit criteria. So for an action plan, the merit criteria is based on your annual crash rate, that is it's set to 100,000 people. They have extra merit criteria for disadvantaged communities. Both census tracts within the city of Hudson are disadvantaged communities based on the 2020 census. And it's basically based on crash data, and there's extra points for your merit criteria for being a disadvantaged community.
So you have looked at our crash data because you identified the 3 roadways that were problematic, correct?
Correct.
Do you think that we have high level of crashes that would qualify us?
I think that your crash rate is 6.7. I have seen communities with lower crash rates win grants. Anything over 17 is considered high priority. But those are typically really large urban areas that have a lot of density and a lot of high crash rate within a small area. So since they do try to spread around different community types with rural and suburban communities in there as well, it's not all urban, but if it's over 17, that's like you're very likely to win. At 6.7, I think that you're kind of mid-range.
Roseanne, I appreciate you. Roseanne, I appreciate you doing a pro bono, but are you doing the same projects for other municipalities in New York?
We are working on one other grant, but it is not a safety action plan. It is an implementation grant in New York. So you would not be competing for the same kind of funding. You wouldn't be going against each other.
Rogan, any answers?
Yeah, Jeff, Ronald, and Matt.
Okay. Go ahead. Before we do that, Councilman, any other questions?
I'm going to speak after another question.
Okay, go ahead.
You have Ronald and Matt.
Yes, very much.
Sorry.
Oh,
Click
Go
on
ahead.
it to unmute. All right, go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering if this is committed to, then are we committed to go further and raise money for the other 2 projects? And what kind of costs would that be to the city? And you would be having to pay 20%, and also you might be having to borrow money. And I just wondered about that. And also when they did the, yes. Anyway, when they redid, what is her name? Stewart's intersection there. They had a large amount of money at first, some 200,000, and the project went way over that. So are these things, coming into this as well, or is this all going to be really worked out?
So you are not obligated to do anything after the action plan. There's no commitment on the city of Hudson's behalf to continue on with anything else with the program. You will have an action plan that will tell you where you should be doing work, roughly how much that work should cost based on today's dollars, and an extensive community involvement process to support that work. It does not say that you have to go after anything. It does not say exactly what you should do with that. There are other ways that you can find the funding as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be an SS4A project, but you can't do the implementation money without this. And that was where this came from, was we were looking at, okay, if we wanted to try to do some interventions on these intersections and get the funding to be able to do implementation projects on the roadways here, what are the levers that we have? And one of them was SS4A, but right now you are not eligible. So this is the eligibility requirement.
There they go, no.
I just got one more question.
Sorry? Hang on a second, are they finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
seems like they're-
Go ahead, John.
Roseanne, so we get this action plan, right? Can we use this for other grants too, that, like state grants and things like that, if something becomes available?
Absolutely. This will be the basis for you to be able to get funding anywhere that you would want. You would have a very strong support for a capital plan for what you would want to advance.
Thank you.
Since I started the development with Lobella and we thank you guys for helping us get the grant for the smaller project. I feel like these answers have been very, like Heather's comments were very helpful. I think it's a bit of, if we want to do something, this is one of the best routes to do it. We're looking at $50,000 to commit. And I think it's hard to, we can do smaller projects, but I'm not sure we do much to improve the function of this city without pursuing something like this. I understand Margaret's concerns. I don't think we ever answered exactly how these invoices get made and how we get reimbursed, but, as far as the managing of the money, I know that Heather's done a great job of it in the past, and I appreciate her saying so. So I feel like there's a little bit of concern, but that my gut says we want to do something. I've heard a lot about us wanting to do something as a city to improve. I think this is the way to go.
So there are two outstanding questions that I know that we don't have answers to. One is whether or not incremental reimbursement is an option. And the other is whether or not the 225 from the grant can include grant administration. Those are the two concrete questions to which we do not have answers. Which gets to the next thing. Does the council feel that you can vote this evening on this without knowing the answer to those questions? Will the answer to those questions change your mind if, for example, we cannot do incremental reimbursement? If it cannot include the, let's say, worst case scenario, doesn't include grant administration, you have to pay for that some other way, would it change your vote?
Yes and no. With the 225, was it? 225, that would be.
45 of it is non-reimbursed.
25 is non-reimbursed.
45.
45.
180 grant money, 45.
Match-ish. Would we be reimbursed within the calendar year?
This is what we don't know.
We don't, oh, sorry, that was the question of the time frame of the
The
reimbursement.
time frame and whether or not we can get paid by milestones. Heather is indicating that this would not necessarily be a problem, but the speed at which one gets reimbursed is an issue.
Yes.
Because you have to carry the debt.
For the financial schedule, I would default to our professional, which is Heather.
Yeah, okay.
And if she is comfortable or
Yeah.
would like us to wait on that financial issue, then I would default to what she thinks, because she has more experience in this than we do.
And Heather,
Yeah, but the deadline is mid-May,
the deadline for the application is
Next week.
next week, so,
next Tuesday.
yeah,
That's why I'm posing to all of you. Here are two open questions. Will the answers to those questions make any difference to your vote?
I have one
Because,
question that
because,
helps that
hang on
answer.
a sec, because if those questions are critical to how you're going to vote, then you need to get the information before you can vote. That's all I'm doing.
And we have until next Tuesday, right?
No, yeah,
Or it
yeah.
has to be today.
No, we have to, the application is due. If I want to have Heather.
Gotcha, yeah.
Okay, Heather, worst case scenario, we cannot have the grant administration piece as part of the 225.
I'm sorry, can I just interject really quickly? I've been doing a little bit of research off on the side for a planning grant, which is what this is. You are eligible to apply for reimbursement in advance. You can get in advance. You don't have to wait for all of the costs to be done.
Good.
You can also bill monthly with the consultant
That's a
invoice
reason,
as you go forward.
Okay, good,
Good.
that's fine. You had a question?
No, that's the thing, it's a current, design is mid of May, so we need to make a
Yes,
decision soon.
yes, sorry. Yeah, that's, I was checking the calendar.
Yeah, but,
In the, but now we have
Heather, I mean, she's okay with it.
Yeah, I think, Heather, you're okay with this, correct? Heather?
Yeah, in general, I'm still slightly unclear on the whole grants administration front, to be honest with you. If I'm understanding correctly, Roseanne, you're saying in the grant application that you are going to create pro bono to submit to get this money for the planning portion of this project. You believe that we can include grants administration as part of professional services, as part of what that 200 and whatever it is, $1,000 amount will go toward. Is that correct?
I will look at it, but the grant administration for this is fairly low level. It's mostly submitting reimbursements with a progress report, which is what I have usually put together for the client. And then the client submits reimbursement with our invoice.
So Heather, my question to you about this was, in the event that we can't do this as part of it, what is the cost? And like, could we identify someone other than you, within the city who would take responsibility for this, or hire somebody to do it as a, you know, as a part-time person to do this? What would
Right,
the
well,
cost be?
that was the question at hand, is whether or not we could get funding to cover some sort of administrative support from somebody outside of the city. I mean, you know the reality of it. If that's not a capability, then it's gonna end up in my office, and I'm just, concerned about. And just so you know, Roseanne, this is just, a tiny little root in the giant root ball of grants administration in the city, and there being no clear oversight for them, and there being no clear grants administration across the city. So it is always my concern that these things get approved, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, who's actually doing the work to make sure we're getting the money back? And what I'm trying very hard to do is to make sure, to the most extent possible, that it is not my office's job, because we have no bandwidth and we actually have no experience or background really in grants administration or reimbursement submissions. So what you're describing in terms of, this is a short project, it's 12 months, you guys provide the information. If you're doing that work, and really the only thing that we need to do is to log into whatever portal is the portal of the day for the federal government and upload some documents, I don't think that's a big problem. I'm not concerned about that. My concern would be nobody's collecting all the invoices, nobody's pulling it together, nobody's got a pay summary and a pay rec. None of that work's being done by anybody. That's my concern. But it sounds like
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's one form that's required to be submitted with it's like a quarterly report is what they usually do. So what I've put together for clients is the progress report. And then there's this form that's very short, and I filled it out, or the client will fill it out. There is information that you would need to provide on how you're providing the 20% local match on the form to show that you are paying it before you do your reimbursement, because it's on each one, you have to do 20%. It's not, they do the 80 and then you do the 20 at the end. You do it throughout, you split the bill. And then you submit it through their portal.
Between the mayor's office.
So one progress report.
I can't agree.
I will stay involved to help with this, and I believe the mayor's office is committed to the same.
Yes,
Roseanne probably confronts, but it seems likely that if something came up that made this untenable for the city to do, you could withdraw the application
Right.
probably, right? So, I mean, if you don't, obviously you don't make the deadline, you've cut
Yes,
it off.
correct.
But
That's
you could
correct.
probably withdraw it.
that's right, yes.
But that's my question.
Yeah, I think we need to get a commitment from the mayor's office as to who's going to administer the project.
So let me, so Roseanne, so something what Ken, on that line, what Ken was saying. So is there a safety, cord, for example, that before we commit anything financial, because this is in the future, and there's some still questions that we have, that can we pull this, even if we get the award, can we still pull this without committing anything financial?
Yes, because I've had clients who have received it and in the end they didn't like the way the grant agreement was written. You still have to go through a grant agreement process after the award is made. So you have time in the grant agreement process to make sure that it's set up the way that you want it to be.
So,
And,
other
and
questions?
if I could just, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I just
go
want to
ahead.
make one more comment following on Jason's thing is, because this is a relatively short project and because I know it's something that both Jason and the mayor's office are interested in, I'm sure we can figure out how to get it administered. I just wanted to make sure that we knew that that was an issue out there, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, will your committee follow up on this?
Jason said he would.
Jason's gonna take the lead on.
He's been doing it so far. It's.
Any other comments from the council? Gary, are you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Ronnie? Okay. So can we have a motion to vote on this resolution, to approve the mayor applying, for this project?
I'll make that motion.
Second, Duran, second, any motion? For this one, we need a roll call vote.
President Morris.
Yes.
Councilmember Haddad,
Aye.
Bernhagen,
Aye.
Roney,
Aye.
Salar.
Aye.
Foster,
Yeah.
Roberts. Felton. Olo,
Aye.
absent, Moranti.
Okay. Well, that wasn't then.
It's only 40 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you very much. We're gonna go on with the rest of our meeting.
All right, thank you.
Let's see. Reports from committees. So you can keep your, these are from your committees to look out, huh? Keep your reports. You want to begin with safety?
Well, I was absent from the safety meeting. Dewan chaired, so I will leave it to Dewan.
On safety meeting, we have the fire, committee. Does, 12/47 called April, reported and, 5 for admitted and 17 for non-emergency. Yes, total, total call. First quarter, so it is about 19 called from the last year. As for the police, and the fire, and also the new truck, in production in, Florida. And it should be delivered to New York in mid-July at a very fire station in mid-August. That's from the fire and the police. There was, the defensive action was reported on April. And there was total 922 incident officer responded. And the parking, there was a total of 3,570 ticket was issued. And there was 2,860 was paid. And the money was $63,000, 675. And this revenue, parking revenue amount is 144,000. In April, this half is 111,000 from last year. That's it for the parking and also We talk about, no turn on red. So we are waiting to determine the Kansas intersection. And we're gonna proceed from there. You know, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Infrastructure and code.
So people be aware that there's gonna be some smoke tests in the city to help find the sewer routing. Shouldn't come into your home, but if it does, that means you probably have a leak that needs to be fixed. The street sweeper has been repaired and is, back online. We're up there. There's reported some vandalism on top of not only the spruce tree, but the float, the parade float, was smashed. we also- Huh?
No, that's.
On the bathroom.
Oh, bathroom.
It broke the window of the bathroom, down at the water. We also spoke about the right turns on red. We would need a sign at each location. Rob estimated those would cost $300 each for the sign and the materials to hang them, which would put it on the order of $13,000 for materials alone. I created a list to be discussed of, specific spots rather than just doing it blanket wise, so that we could try to curb that cost and then do it over. So the list is out there on, chime in on which areas. Should actually have no right turn on right. The report on the sewer project that is coming, got larger. The pipe sizes were determined. And so for an example, like the 300 block of Columbia will have a 48-inch sewer and a 36-inch rainwater. So the entire street will be this. And then also that sewer laterals should be done all the way to the houses, and rainwater will be collected from the roofs, so those front yards will be excavated. And so sidewalks will be replaced. It's going to be bigger than we heard about before, but probably not starting any earlier than August.
Physically wider.
Yeah.
I just have a question about the right turn on red. It's my understanding that the initial idea of universally no turn on red was not, that's not an option because you're not allowed to do that.
Like the only place allowed to do that is New York City.
That's correct.
And then the rest of New York
Right, so
State.
but we have
must
to identify,
sign.
we have to identify specific places.
Yeah.
We could do it citywide, but we would need a sign for every single place. And that would be the estimate of $13,000 for materials
Yes.
plus DPW.
Yeah. So we need to identify the ones where it's necessary.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, Nick Fox, was nice enough to join us for the first time. We had a lot of good discussions. I guess we kind of focused a bit on noise and to the pocketbook factory, but he's working, sound like he's working on all the things that we were concerned about. And he will, at this point, continue to return to that meeting unless it becomes, people decide it's more advantageous for him to attend safety or something else. But for the time being, unless things change, it's gonna continue with him.
Services, Dominic, I think that's you.
You got it. Okay, so senior services, attempted a couple times, left a message, was reading down at the, to obtain information, was not successful. There's still no senior, commissioner, for the city, so I have no input there. The only thing I know is that the county's still doing their programming from 9 to 1. And then, we do have, hopefully the next couple weeks, the survey, committee has volunteered to go to some, Bliss Towers, Providence Hall, Crosswinds to actually, get a survey about transportation at the senior center. If they're going, why they're not going, is transportation an issue? because there's a shuttle bus, from my understanding, but it's a long wait, it's not a kind of a direct route. So that might be one of the issues too, is that catching that bus is very difficult, and staying on the bus for 2 blocks could be very long times. In terms of, I'm gonna create a flyer. They agreed to have it, let us come down, so they're gonna put a flyer up, of the date, and then we can go down and sit with a clipboard and surveys and ask, my goal is to at least get 50 back. I think that's a good sampling of what's the reason why, seniors aren't attending the senior center. Especially if there's transportation issue. As of the youth, services, Calvin gave his monthly report. Did you get that report?
Yes, that's in cross.
And then, one of the key points is they're transitioning from, the end of school year programming into camp programming. They did not do any program during the week of April, because apparently they were doing interviews, for camp staff. They're looking at 16 counselors and 18 lifeguards. They also have a prospect for the camp director, which is going to be a part-time position, to run camp, during camp session. And I think they said they have a candidate that works at the school, that they're highly looking forward to working with them. There's 3 locations for rainy days for camp. One is the library, which they do the programming during the year. That's going to be for younger kids. The youth center is going to be another location for a different age group, and firehouse is going to be another location for different age group. So it's going to be more manageable as the group's going to be smaller, and the activities can be according to the age appropriateness. Calvin went to a conference for a couple of days. He said he got some good information that he's hopes to bring back and implement some of the ideas in the youth conference up in Albany. So the other. So part of the preparation for camp is a week of training for the staff that is at Oakdale, that the youth department conducts with the safety plan and safety geared toward camp location. And there is, I think it's 2 or 3 AEDs that staff are trained on for the use of the AEDs. I think that's, what's kind of neat, they're doing a sample, flag football, for 3 weeks, as that's kind of the trend in school right now. The high school, I know they have a, girls flag football team. So I think that's kind of a trend, and it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for those 3 weeks, with flag football, to see if that's something that can be, done, more on an annual basis. I think that's basically it for the update.
Thank you. Any questions?
Dominic,
Yes.
you mentioned the temporary position in the youth department. Financially, they're handling it. Is there any impact?
Well, so they had a rec attendant, that was budgeted for this year, resign. So they're not going to fill that position, my understanding is, and they're going to use that funding, that salary,
That's what I thought.
I believe, to help fund the camp director position.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything online?
Yeah.
Okay, legal, pretty brief. This evening, we have the 11 Warren Street parking contract that we're going to discuss. 2 things came up during the discussion of 11 Warren. One related to the fact that the county has said that their spaces can be used after hours by non-Columbia County employees. So they'd be open to the public. And I followed, but it was not in writing. And member of the public pointed out that the arrangement for the lot at Helsinki was actually a arrangement that was worked through during the planning board process. And that wasn't just a casual thing, that was an agreement that Helsinki folks could use the Columbia County lot for the meetings. So I followed up with the county the following day, and they are amending the contract to put that in writing. So the version that you get to vote on next week should have language in there that after hours it is open for use to the public. The other issue that was discussed was the handicap parking space that is in front of it on Farm Street. They have a space within their parking lot that that will be a handicap spot. But in a discussion with Jason, we may actually need to have a handicap spot and you had also raised concerns, in that block. So my recommendation to the mayor was that we put a handicap spot to replace the one that we are losing, that we put one on the other side of the street across beside Shiloh Baptist Church. That way we meet the access requirement, and there isn't really very much down there other than the church, and soon there will be a hotel. So that recommendation I made to the mayor. Pocketbook factory lease. The revised lease is for you here for your review. We discussed that. This situation with the lease is that it's, we need to move to get that in place so that they can actually pave it and try to alleviate some of the problems that the residents in that area are having. So you have that this evening. We didn't have any changes or revisions to that. I also put on the agenda for legal document that we received about a month ago from Ben Fain's attorney regarding the Waterford Village rezoning petition. That is before the planning board at the moment. We do not need to take action on it right away. Ken will advise us on it. Essentially, the parcel currently has 3 different zonings in it. And the petition is to create a single zoning for the entire parcel. It's beyond our scope to talk about the appropriateness of the development, etc. That's really belongs before the planning board. But I do not anticipate really looking at that. It's probably not until the July meeting. But for now, we just look at it, pay attention to what's going on in the planning board. Safe streets, we've discussed that at our legal committee, and we have had our discussion of that on the phone. Jenny updated us on the payment in lieu of parking, and she is putting together a list of potential locations in the city where, should we go with the IROP, the funds could be used to create parking. And that's it for me. Okay, finance, do you have anything?
No, we could be looking at these.
Yeah. Oh, the one thing, I put it on the agenda this evening. There's a bullet point on the agenda for fee schedule. Excuse me, yeah, I'm going, there's a couple of things we need to add to it. I'm working on putting a final version together. You will not have that I hope to get it to you this evening, but we will have a look at that next month. You should have the full updated fee schedule, the final stuff we're working on. You'll get that next month.
Parking resolution, are we going to discuss that later? Parking resolution, that you brought up in legal. Are we going to discuss it later, or is we talk? I just kind of couple questions.
Oh, it's in the list. It's in our package. Bring it up when we get to it.
Yeah,
Right. So I'm just giving you this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, great. Now we get to resolutions. Okay. I think we're in the right order here. Logan, the first one I have is Commissioner of Deeds.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 individuals for Commissioner of Deeds. And these are, for the most part, are things that are going to be voted about next month. Next week, excuse me. Next is cancellation of outstanding checks. This is simply checks that have been issued and have not been cashed in over 6 months. One of them notably is a National Grid check for $10,000. And you will all recall the issue that we have. And I confirmed with, DPW that they, that's all cleared, done, and so that's a non-issue. Next resolution is, a budget amendment, to cover City Hall sprinkler repair and control panel upgrades. There are some, damaged panels and necessary replacements for City Hall. So that is an amendment. And stop me if you have any questions. Then we have, excuse me, a budget amendment for the police department. While this is an amendment, and Heather, correct me if I'm not saying this correctly, there is actually funding in the restricted equitable sharing DOJ for this, but this is necessary equipment for training for 3 years. Is that correct, Heather?
That is correct. Yep. It's money that we get for equitable sharing, and that money is set aside in a reserve fund, and they can draw from it their guidelines on what they're allowed to use it for. So yeah, this is not coming out of the general fund.
Next is resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a lease amendment agreement with the Pocketbook Factory tenant. This is the reduction in the number of spaces. I think it's down to 34. Yes, 34 parking spaces. Once this is in place and the planning board has approved their site plan, they can then work on paving and so forth. So was this what you wanted to bring, you had comments on, Dominic?
The Pocketbook Factory?
Yeah.
No, 11 weren't you?
Oh, okay. Any questions on Pocketbook? Okay. Next is resolution establishing standard workday for New York State LRS-ERS employees. This is about the retirement system. Met with Heather and Danielle. This is a purely administrative issue. There are some new titles that needed to be added to the system, and there were a couple of titles where the information is not correct. So this is the full roster of titles right now. But that is an administrative function. Next resolution is authorizing the mayor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with Columbia County, allowing the county to have 18 designated permitted parking spaces weekdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. adjacent to 11 Warren Street, aka it's the 11 Warren Street issue. So, Dominic.
So you said you talked to the county, and what was their agreement? That they were going to after hours and stuff?
I talked to them because we had verbal agreement that after hours spaces in their lot and also in front of Warren Street would be available to members of the public. And I asked if they would, I told them about the situation with Helsinki that the member of the public had brought up. And I asked them if they would be willing to put that in writing in the agreement. And this was a conversation on Friday. Their attorney was going to be coming back this week. He was not available on Friday, but they agreed that they would indeed be happy to put it in writing. So the resolution that you see next week to vote on should have that in writing.
Well, I mean, I'd like to amend it to, 610 is going to become available in July, right? I think that it would be nice, especially evenings and weekends, that residents have an option, as long as there's a, timetable, the signage say you have to be out by 8 o'clock or whatever it is, that I think all the county parking lots should be available to residents off hours. I think maybe we should put that in there, right? Because, like I said, 610 has maybe 15 spots, 610 but, right. And that's gonna be, could be an option for the Pocketbook Factory on the weekends, right? DSS could be an option for Pocketbook Factory to, help alleviate the stress on Washington and everything if there's some overflow. So I think that if there's signage where people know that they can use it after hours on the weekend, but during, there's consequence, of course, if it's there during the week, during business hours, I would like to open all the county lots to, help our parking situation.
Okay. Any other comments? Yeah.
Of course, we talked about the handicap parking space. I think it should be in writing as well. I think it should be in the resolution.
That's not for them. That's not their problem. That's our problem.
I think it.
Well, they're removing it.
Created the problem for me. I think that they should pay to paint the blocking at the front of the building.
Yeah, that's what Poplar Factory did. They had to put it on there.
But also just like the air that I feel mixed about this whole agreement. I think that we're trying to protect the neighbors. But I think neighbors up and down Orange Street are also kind of feeling the same pain and have the same concern. So I feel like we're doing what we can and we're a little bit forced here. But yeah, I just say that, I feel mixed. I'm not sure what to do about feeling mixed about it. Just want it out there.
I'm gonna have to say I agree with Jason, and I also, especially since we offered them other solutions that they did not take. Yeah, I feel mixed.
Easy to feel a certain mixed way when we've always had the short end, been handed the short end of the stick from the county. And never gotten our fair share from them, and they've asked more from us than we can provide, and they've never given us, well, our fair share. So
Whatever our feelings may be,
it will is a solution, so.
right, whatever our feelings may be. They do not, hang on, they do not have, and yes, they created the problem. They do not have enough spaces in their lot to accommodate their employees. If those employees do not have place to park, that can't be paid for, they will be seeking parking on Union, on Columbia, and on Allen. They will be trying to avoid parking in metered spaces on Warren, which will create more costs for people living in that end of town. The other thing, I would invite any of you during the day to drive down to that end of Warren and see that there are very few cars parked there, and that we are going to get guaranteed income, 8 a.m. to 5 days a week, every week of the year, at 90% of the rate. Currently, we probably have 10% usage.
Yeah.
90%. So there's a financial benefit to us doing this. And also, most importantly, the quality of life issue for the folks who are going to be impacted by this. So I have feelings about the thing too, but you have to be practical. This is a problem and we have to address it. And, you know, that's, I think, and also this contract is written to specify that it's 90% of whatever the parking rate is, not a fixed amount, so that if our parking rates go up, their rates. Right, so, yes, is it, difficult to swallow? Yes. Would we prefer to have a different development there? Yes. But this is where we are.
Can I ask you what the snapshot is in terms of the parking spots? Are they gonna be signage? How are they gonna know that they're counting?
The county is paying for and doing signage that the city has to approve. And we will, the signage will be showing, you know, I haven't seen it yet, they haven't drafted it, but there will be signage indicating that from one end to the other end of the street, in front of everything is abutting their property, is reserved for Columbia County employees, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on First Street, there'll be signage indicating, I think it's 4 spaces on First. That will be, found as phenomenal.
So
I'll get you in a moment.
I'm sorry, but you know, this really isn't a great solution. I mean, you're going to have people parked there, their employees parked there during elections. Where are people going to park when they need to vote? I'm sorry, this isn't a really great solution. It's a terrible solution, actually.
So
The solution that they were offered by the parking committee was a great solution.
They'll be shuttling people, maybe have to use like a shuttle bus to shuttle people and things for, you know, for.
Right, and we don't have one of those.
They usually on parking lots.
I mean, I would tell you where I work, right? If we have to pay for parking, we submit a receipt and we get reimbursed. So why can't the county do the same thing for their employees? You know, if they have to park, and they, you know, submit a receipt to the county, let the county reimburse them.
I think it's, to Margaret's point, I think it's very unlikely a county employee is gonna pay for parking at part of the building, but they can walk 100 feet on South First.
I'm not about to
On
ask
Union.
filling in.
Where there's no parking, I guess.
Where there's no metered parking and.
Right.
The solution that was presented to them was to build their own parking lot for $175,000. That's what Rob quoted me. Where the gravel lot is next to the bridge that goes over Ferry Street. Building that and then metering that lot for use when they're not, they're there, and giving them 6 years free. I thought that was a really good solution. But
Well, when it's voting though, Jen, the county's closed normally. You know, right, so they won't be parking there during voting. I don't think the county,
the election board will still be there and their people will still be parked there.
well, hopefully they will have some kind of sense to park. I don't know, you're right, I think that's gonna be an issue.
I just have a question. They aren't expecting HPD to enforce their parking. Who enforce their?
No, HPD, has been part of this agreement and they will ensure that the cars parked there are kept to park. They are working at the details of, whether they're going to have, hang tags or what they're gonna have to determine it. I believe they're going to enter the register vehicles in the system. So they will know, but I think they may also have hang tags, but HPD will report.
That's another question, sorry. So they are going to register their license plates, not a hang tag situation, correct?
But that's really a question for our chief fire marshal. They are working on the details of the implementation.
What happens, Margaret, is that those hang tags are given to other people and their families,
They are registering the vehicles.
It's a vehicle, you got that.
If it's by tag, by license plate, then I'm okay with it. But that is, the hang tag thing is not good.
As long as the tag is indicating just that area, because you don't want them having a free ride.
No, they can.
Yeah, it's just for those spots.
Anything from Gary or Ronnie?
What's
Are Gary and Ronnie hands raised or not?
Yeah.
Okay. We have someone in the room. Bill?
Good, thanks so much. I live right across from 11 Warren. And obviously was intrigued, by the news, that I won't be able to park. But I want to go back a little bit about how we got to the situation and then focus on the parking. And if I'm going too long, tell me to be quiet, and I'll go quicker and shorter. The whole story does not start well. With a stealthy acquisition of 11 Warren, by the previous administration. At least they didn't get involved in it. I guess Gallery sold it. For purposes that could have been housed almost anywhere. But the county chose those purposes to be housed in our historic district and in our commercial street. Imagine Kathy Hochul coming to New York and saying she'd like to take part of Fifth Avenue to provide support for elections and probation. And by the way, she was going to close down the street for parking to the people working there. I don't think that would happen. The county is supposed to be our brother, our sister, our cousin, or friend. I don't find anything about this particularly friendly. That acquisition for the purposes that they're using it for is totally inappropriate to the historic district and to our commercial street. I see it frankly as a taking. That should have been housing, which Hudson needs. It should have been paying taxes, which Hudson needs. It should have been additional potentially storefronts, which Hudson needs. And we got nothing that Hudson needs, but just stuff that county needs that didn't have to be on Warren Street. That was taking number one. Taking number two is parking. And how did that become the city's problem? They knew very well going in their number of employees, which ranges, I guess, from 18 to 28 or something.
That's four.
They knew very well the number of people who would be transiting in and out of the space to do work there or provide services or pursue services there. And they knew that tiny parking lot in front was inadequate. And I would say they didn't give a damn. They made it the city's problem. So we're in a situation where the president of the common council and the mayor have been working their hearts out to come to a resolution to protect their friends and neighbors, and they should not have been put in that situation. The burden should be on the county to solve a problem created by the county. It should not be put back to the city and said, here, guys, I'm screwing you three ways. I'm gonna screw you on taxes, I'm gonna screw you on usage, I'm gonna screw you on appropriate usage of your commercial district and your historic district, and by the way, solve my problem.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay,
I think we should start charging the county.
sorry?
I think we should start charging the county for the lot that they use on city land on state forfeit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we just take it from them?
No, sorry, you can.
It's our,
Let's take the other lot.
yeah.
No, I mean,
For years.
I agree with everything that you say, and I was very angry, and I was part of the 11 Warren group that tried to oppose that sale, and, it was a disgrace.
Murder get us out of this. This is not a good deal.
Not a good deal.
Do you have a better one?
Yes, what your colleague before was
Jenny?
describing. They should have a separate parking lot for their purposes. They should pay for it. There should be a shuttle transportation. They don't own Lower Warren Street. They now have consumed virtually the entire block of our most important commercial street. For what? Elections, probation, that could be anywhere else in town. Do you find that respectful?
No.
Do you find it respectful that as chair of the Preservation Commission, they never even bothered to contact me about what they were doing? When the courthouse was being built, they contacted us immediately. This is about dissing the city.
Well, it's par for the course. I mean, I'd be shocked to be treated any other way by the county.
When you get bullied once, you should try not to get bullied twice.
Okay, anything else?
Not on that.
Okay, so,
No.
moving right along. Never mind, okay. Next is, okay, we received, the next is a resolution authorizing a grant match. So this relates to the fact that we received a grant of 180,000. And this is a budget amendment. We have to make a $20,000 match, and this is to cover our, city zoning code project. So that's what that one is. Any questions? Next, I have something that will definitely not have any controversy or comment. The resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a real contract of property sale with Hudson Brewery Company. This is the sale of the Dunaware House. So, you have the contract will be posted publicly. Members of the council have received the contract. Essentially, this is a sale for $500,000 to the brewery. There are provisions in here that if they do not complete the stabilization within a year, that they need to pay a $90,000 fee to Hudson. Or if they resell the building within 24 months of closing, they have to pay a fee of 90,000 to Hudson. So I'm opening this up for comment.
I have, when I was on the council 14 years ago to 10 years ago, we did discuss the Dunn warehouse quite a bit. And to think that we would sell the Dunn warehouse for a short-term gain of $500,000 is completely insulting. To give away our last bit of property at the waterfront is no less than short-sighted. And it is quite frankly stupid on our part to proceed with that. It is a forever Superfund site. It is only going to be done affordably by a municipality. We own it. We should finish the job. HDC 12 years ago or so had plenty of plans in place, and then the ball was dropped by the city. And I think that we certainly should not proceed with this without, I don't believe this contract even has us holding the paper on it. And it doesn't have any right of first refusal. If they were to turn around, if they were to win this and turn around and sell it within an appropriate amount of time, $90,000 fine, penalty, or whatever, we don't get the right to have it back. And I think that is two things, if this were to proceed with a sale, are very short-sighted, to not hold the note and to not have right of first refusal.
I think the right of first refusal issue should actually go way beyond 2 years. I mean, the 2-year clause.
It should be forever. This
Yes,
should be
right.
in perpetuity
I
if
think
this
so
was
too.
ever to be sold
Yes,
again,
that we
if
should-
this
yes,
is
I agree.
awarded.
I have a question.
Hang on a second.
So that's basically it. And
Yeah, I think it needs to go beyond it.
And I would like to hear from HDC again on their plans for, because I know they have them. They've had them for a long time, and I'm certain that they have them still, and I'm pretty sure they have the funding for it, for what they would do in a timely fashion, which would definitely be cheaper, because it would be us doing it than a private individual.
Okay, Jenny?
I'm going to ask Mr. Dow, can we do that? Can we write that into the contract that, you know, we have the right of first refusal forever and ever?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, because the mayor's office this is entirely the mayor's office. They've worked out all negotiations to present it to you guys, so I haven't been involved in it to any degree.
We can refuse to approve the resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what. I'm really, so I haven't really been involved in this transaction, so I can't really speak out.
And the purchases I've done in the past.
You can negotiate anything, Jenny.
Okay,
And I did meet with them,
yeah,
and they themselves brought up the fact that they had internally discussed giving the city right of first refusal. So I expect to see that in this contract. And I also think that if they don't stabilize it within a year, it should refer to the city. Because the only reason we're selling it is because we do not want it to degrade any further. And if it's going to degrade and nothing is done with it within a year, we might as well still own it.
Well, actually, this is one more comment. This was also done by the previous administration without a proper RFP, and it was ran through at the 11th hour by the former council president, which is another slap in the face for everyone that lives here, works here, and it has been on this council and was on this council for the last 4 years. It is a slap in the face of your intelligence.
Margaret, what happens to the $500,000 restore grant that the city has for that building?
Excuse me?
The $500,000 restore grant that the city has.
I have more questions than answers on this. I have a lot of questions about seeing the financials from the buyer and the actual work plan and the timeline
And
and,
who are all
you
the
know, like
investors?
what you would ordinarily see in a sale like this. Like, what is the actual plan, the financials, breakout, step by step? Yes, I have a lot of questions.
Well, I'm
But
wondering if
I know
they're
about the restore grant, but I don't know the answer to that.
okay, because I'm wondering if they're expecting that if someone agreed to that before you took over, you know, if they said they're gonna use the.
We didn't, I don't have the financials in this document. So I don't know whether that's part of what they're planning to give.
where did we see the previous, plans?
Excuse me?
Where can we see previous plans that were?
They were emailed to the council. I asked Lyric to email everyone in February, the old plan, the old development plans that HDC provided to the council 10 to 12 years ago. And It's 2015. It's in our email, but it was a big mess of emails, so it easily could have gotten swiped past. And if HDC is in the room, maybe they would like to speak. Sorry, Council President, taking her.
Is it appropriate?
Sorry, oh, yeah. Any other council members want to speak first?
No.
Oh, okay.
One here.
Thank you for reopening this conversation. I think it's a very healthy thing to do. I'm Christine Jones, President of the Hudson Development Corporation currently. This is Nick Hadden, he's the VP. And Phil Foreman is our treasurer, but he's not here to speak on that, on this issue. It's the 50th anniversary of HDC. We're a local development corporation. Our task is to support Hudson's economic development. And we love to collaborate with the city, with the council, with the mayor's office. That's our power. It's very hard for us to do things without a collaborative relationship with you, so we welcome the opportunity to speak here. In August of 2015, the Hudson Development Corp, which I'm going to call HDC going forward, received a concept development plan from Saratoga Associates for the adaptive reuse of the Dunn Warehouse on the Hudson waterfront. The plan promoted the stabilization of the historic Dunn Warehouse, the city's last remaining central waterfront building. The City of Hudson issued a request for proposal, an RFP, for a public-private partnership to adaptively reuse the Dunn Warehouse based on recommendations in a 2015 study, and that's 11 years ago. The plan cautioned against limiting it to any one use. The warehouse's isolated location and a diversity of activities is recommended that would once complement one another, serve as attractions that relate to waterfront experience, and would not compete or duplicate with the Warren Street experience. Analysis found that the northern section of the building would be most conducive to a mix of retail and food activities, with the southern section being more optimal as a flexible public space. The analysis also strongly recommended that certain conditions be attached if sale were the option chosen. It encouraged stipulations to avoid the risk of inappropriate uses or delays in implementation, which is something we're very worried about with the building now that it's so much later that we haven't done anything with it. That sales should be conditioned upon specific qualifications that include financial management capabilities of the buyer, in addition to a successful track record of the buyer as a viable business plan for a building of this nature. It was suggested that the city retain ownership of the building, as it is a big part of the value of the Hudson waterfront. And we are all guilty of not making something happen in the waterfront. There's no question about that. But we don't want to give away this building before we have the opportunity to do something about it. The city would have to bring an investor into the ownership structure of the building so that the investor could claim credits and other economic tax benefits in exchange for providing the equity to the project. At the time, the study said a $2 to $2.5 million investment would be required. Of course, that's 11 years ago, so it's pretty small, I'd say. And at the time, the tenants that they believe that the tenants that would come about after the remediation to the waterfront location and the tourism and the hospitality that would take place there would be a great benefit to the city's cash flow. There's also the remediation component, which I'm not really talking about tonight, but it is a tremendous remediation to remediate the building. I spoke with former Mayor Scalera about the remediation of the park, which he was on watch to do that. And that was an amazing undertaking to clean out what is cleaned out. He has said that the interior of the building was unable to be cleaned out at the time. And there are questions of coal tar, are the bricks polluted? Is the ground is definitely a brownfield. So a vapor barrier would have to be put down to even make it suitable for eating in the building. The vapor barrier is an extremely expensive thing to do, and National Grid is still theoretically on the hook for the remediation of that building, which could go as high as $23 million. I'm sure that the buyer you have on the RFP, the brewer, is well-meaning and wanting to participate in that building, but the scope of the remediation alone is much greater than any individual in Hudson, can really understand. It's gonna take a very big effort to do that.
Sorry, may I interrupt?
Yes,
With regard to the remediation?
yes,
I provided the phase 1 environmental study to them because I wanted to make sure they understood the scope of what the issue was, because that, the vapor barrier, et cetera, the fact that the ground underneath the building is contaminated, all of that is laid out in that report. I don't know if you all have that. So, do you all have the Saratoga study?
Yes, I don't
Yes.
think they knew it. February.
Well, when I gave them the report, they told me that they had been looking for it. They had seen it referenced somewhere, but they hadn't actually seen it, and I handed it.
Hopefully they read it.
yeah. I mean, having participated, HDC tried to remediate the John Leonard School to buy and bring back the John Leonard School. And in our due diligence of the building, we found that there was a great deal, I mean, it's a steel building, beautiful building, but it's asbestos because it was built in the 60s. So to remediate that building would be $5 million just for the asbestos.
Yeah.
And it was difficult for us to even wrap our minds around how we were gonna do that. We were willing to try, but we would need to collaborate with the school district who owns the building and also the city. And the collaboration on that side wasn't willing to go forward to apply together for grants. So $5 million for that remediation and a vapor barrier and remediation of the dirt is in the more than 5 million. So I don't know if they're prepared for that. Anyway, finally, the review
Which, by
determined-
the way, is one of
Yes.
the reasons why I would like to see detailed financials here.
Right.
Before agreeing to
Yeah.
anything.
Finally, the review determined that the best use of this historic building would be a variety of uses, shopping, dining, events. Events we can all envision, that it's no brainer. It should capitalize on the location by complementing and enhancing the character of the riverfront, strengthening a sense of place by visually and physically connecting the building to the Hudson River. Nowhere was it suggested that one tenant would be the best scenario. We all know that many years of talking about this building have done nothing to save it. It's at a critical juncture, something has to happen. There are repairs needed to stabilize it. An HDC brought a structural engineer into the building a couple of, maybe a month ago. And he reviewed the work to be done and believed that the building can be stabilized. The ground is another matter that would require us to, tap into National Grid and get them. I think they were supposed to be coming and looking at the site once a year to check it out.
Yes.
And I don't know that they have been ever here since Rick was in office. So there's that question. Our mission, is to grow the economic opportunity for the city of Hudson and to work with the city to do so. We're more than willing to do that on this building. We worry about the timeline that the brewery has in place to actually remediate the structure and bring it back. And there's a stabilization aspect and then there's the ground. So these things are huge, huge things to do. And I'm not sure that one business in Hudson has got the bandwidth or the financial wherewithal to find the money to actually move it forward on a schedule that we're hoping, we know it needs to be on. To keep the ownership of this building in the hands of the city and to move it forward is, as a major asset on the waterfront, is something that HDC would consider reviewing the costs to stabilize the building with you, work together with the council, with the city, to work as a team to make this building come back. To buy more time to get it moving and, maybe even underwrite some of it. We have to present that to our board because we don't make decisions in a vacuum, but we think this is an important moment to review a mistake that's about to happen. So we're willing to collaborate. We know developers on a larger scale than just people in the city who bid on an RFP that maybe wasn't widely circulated. So I applaud you, Councilmember Haddad, for bringing that up. And I'm enthusiastic that you're willing to open this back up and listen and work together. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to can I make one comment that I got from a member of the public with regard to referring to the building as a historic building. Just to remind everyone that its status is as an individual landmark of the city of Hudson, designated by the Historic Preservation Commission.
Heard that.
Right.
And
So I just want to point that out.
also as a reminder, having been here when Dunn Builders gave the building to the city, I don't think it was never their intention they expected that at some point, it was a storage building, they used it in running their business. But when the brothers gave it to the city, it was a gift. It wasn't this necessarily for the city to sell. They anticipated something being done. And this is at the time when the waterfront was recently conceived. It wasn't that many years ago. But I was on the council at the time when Saratoga Associates, when we hired them, and they did their presentation, and it might be a bit formulaic on some level, but it's accurate. It grabbed the meat and potatoes of what needed to be done to the building. And really what's important for me is the future. I mean, we've only got one waterfront, and we've probably got the best one on the river at this point. I mean, it's unspoiled,
We're biased.
pardon?
We're biased.
Well, we are biased, but the idea of giving up a piece of it, when we have it right in our power in our hands to make something happen, and, you know, it was on us too. I mean, successive administrations have sort of let this thing go. And we don't know exactly what, when I think about what the north parking lot right now, what New York State's planning on doing with it, if in fact they engage with it, it's going to constrict dramatically the use by the public of the river. And there'll be half the parking spaces, if half at all. So we'll be constrained, so the public will need something. And I mean, this whole idea of low-hanging fruit for $500,000, yeah, it's on us, it's on the old, you know, us who didn't develop it when we had the time. We didn't have the money. But I think with HVC, we have the ability to go for grants, we can work with the cities. That's our mission.
I mean, I have to say also, my real job is I sell real estate in Hudson, and I've been doing it now for 10 years, and I've seen, you know, we've all seen what happened here. I do think $500,000 for that building is way, way undervalued. Of course, it's in bad shape, but it's way, way too undervalued for what it is and where it is. And
that brings up the concern of reselling it and compensating us with $90,000 if it resells for 1.5 or 2 million is not really.
And 90 for a profit of $700,000 while we put the bill.
So
This is a bad sale.
We just implore you
yeah,
to
think about
revisit
it.
it.
Yeah.
And
Do we have any questions or comments from council members?
Yeah, I think I do.
Hang on a second. Online, Gary, Ronnie, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm trying to get the vision and the confidence and the assurance of, it doesn't sound like something the city of Hudson would be good at. And, having trouble gaining that vision of, wow, we could do this. And I guess, yes, the money may not be right, but right now this is something to do with it. And somebody's gonna do something with it. And so I guess just that, how do you convince me that something better, something grand can happen?
Well, I mean, close your eyes, no. I have talked to a few people about the waterfront, and I consider the waterfront the third rail when you're working in Hudson. If you bring up the waterfront, people go out of their mind because you don't know what it should be better. But I called up a few people who do design waterfronts and design some spectacular ones in America. They're very well-known people. One of the groups has worked with Olana on siting the Berkeley Church Visitor Center, which was a big, huge job. They got to know a lot of people in the Hudson Valley. And I said to him, have you ever had any conversations about the Hudson waterfront? And this man almost jumped through the phone at me how much he would love to be involved in doing this. Another person said there's a group of people who when they did this in Hudson, they reviewed the waterfront. They took comments from the public. They worked
You know, the Cornell
for 5 years.
Cornell group?
Yes.
That was really good.
Yes. And so they're very enthusiastic about being involved. If the Dunn Warehouse was part of it, they would want to know, they would want to be involved. It will take a collaboration of people with expertise to make this happen. And that's something, I don't have those names of people, but I think if we all wanted to do it bad enough, we need to figure out what's wrong with it and figure out the baseline of it and what needs to be done and what financially it would cost. And then I think we just go at it. It's, you know, there's grant money, there's private money, and it's too good. It's like the jewel to give away. It's not gonna be easy. It's, you know, this is why it's not done.
And we're not expecting the city to do it alone.
No.
But we did do a couple of capital projects here and do them reasonably well, the city by itself. We built a firehouse, a combined firehouse, and we built a police and court building. And we did a pretty good job. This perhaps is more daunting because it's not as, but I think with collaboratively with, you know, outside help, us as a development agency that is focused only on the betterment of Hudson, that we can make it happen.
At the very least, we should understand what it is before, you know, a decision is made to sell.
So are there any comments more?
I did, I was trying to get caught up because I'm still doing all this, but with the Dunn Warehouse, it's been sitting for, you said since 2015, that's got, I mean, I'm not sitting, it's in there, but I mean, like the proposals or.
Yes.
And it's just, no one had any, collaborations with investors or just like, I'm just saying, like the Hudson Brewery Company wants to take them by the building. But you guys were saying, you know, you don't see it's fit for one business, right?
Well, I was on the Historic Preservation Commission when one of the larger developers in the city wanted to offer to buy the Dunn Warehouse. And we gave them a 1-year window to get it stabilized and done, and they immediately pulled out.
They knew they couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it. And that was somebody with a full proven track record and owns dozens of buildings in the city.
The issue is, to me, I have not seen enough detail. The RFP was not
It was
great.
illegal.
The request for proposal, not proposal, sorry, request for, I haven't seen the detailed financials. I would have to see. Prime real estate on the riverfront for $500,000 is not reasonable. And if we sell this, we need to do so with some good confidence that this is going to work, that they will actually have the finances and resources to actually remediate it and pull it off. Like whether or not it should just be a brewery or not, or, you know, a boutique, whatever. That doesn't worry me so much as, we sell this for $500,000 without actually doing due diligence to determine whether or not the entity that is purchasing it understands the scope of the project and has the resources to actually pull it off, and then they resell it. And then at that point, we have no control over anything that happens there. And they resell it for $2 million or whatever. I think we're rushing into something here without actually doing enough work to make the decision.
The proposal is on the Hudson website from 2015, but there've been a few along.
Are you talking about the Saratoga one?
Huh?
No, talking about Hudson River, the.
Which one are you saying?
2015, that one that HCC.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can put a package together for everybody if you want.
Yeah.
The Saratoga, report was really interesting. And you should also read the, phase 1 environmental report. Yeah,
Also
so,
in the deed that the remediation has to take place, the deed for the property has
Yeah.
stipulations, it's.
One thing I want to add to the environmental part is when in December of last year, when the former council heard the two proposals, one from the brewery and one from Ben Fane. neither of them took into account the environmental conditions that are going to be with that property for the rest of its existence. There are hours of the day employees are allowed to be there. And I'm pretty sure it's only 8 hours a day because it's a forever Superfund site with, even with a vapor barrier, that you cannot operate a business. OSHA will not allow a business to have employees there for more than 8 hours in a 24-hour period. So there are so many financial hurdles that a developer will have to go through. And the two presentations that this council, previous council, and Jason and I were in the room, so I'll say this current council received it was kind of a smokescreen. It was another snake oil salesman coming into the room and trying to get everybody to buy it. And they both probably knew better than to present that. And I don't feel that it was done appropriately. That is all.
Andrew?
I think that's a little unfair. I don't think these people are snake oil salesmen. They just probably don't know the whole story behind what they need to do for litigation.
Then why would you give a presentation knowing rightfully well there are more skeletons in the closet to look at? And if you have development with multi-million dollars behind it, assumedly you may have, at the very least, a accountant doing
So can we,
Sorry, that's a
sorry,
debate.
hang on. Let's not get into whether or not people are snake oil or not.
I just thought it was.
Let's just focus on the fact that, let's look at, do we have enough information here? Do we have enough information about the financials of this organization? Let's stick with the facts. Rich?
It's just a question, when you say holding off, what's the?
If we ever were to ever sell this property, we should hold the mortgage on it and we should hold the financial, we should be holding the financial backing for it. So if they default, it comes to us. If they lose their shirt, I mean, if anyone goes there, they should hope, I wish them the best of success because that makes us successful. But if they don't, then we should get it back. If they default on the mortgage, we get it back.
Do we actually sell the property, we just rent it?
We rent it.
Well, we can't,
If you
no,
were to sell it, you would just.
no, you would have to sell it because the reason the last one did not work was it was supposed to be a public-private partnership with a lease agreement, and it was going to be multi-use, and the folks had to withdraw from it because nobody would give them financing unless the city went in applying for the financing with them, because they would not give financing to somebody who was leasing a property. And so the financing piece fell apart. That's how that fell apart.
I just say it seems extremely unlikely that a private entity is gonna be able to take this thing on. It's a $23 million remediation. There's no way you're gonna do that as a purely private activity and come out ahead. So if you sell to them, I can't imagine that they're gonna be able to do that.
Well, I'd like to see the financials and I'd like to see the details of the plan, every
And
space.
so so it's, when it looks like it's almost a guaranteed default.
I took this along. Next week is our formal meeting. Ordinarily, we review things in this meeting, and then if it's on the agenda next week, we vote on it. I will not be putting this on the agenda next week. So I would like us to take some time to try to get some more information. We can potentially have it on the agenda in, what is this, May and June? Or maybe it'll be July, but it will not be on the agenda next week.
I do have a question for Ken real quick. Ken, even though, wouldn't we still be on liability if we know some Greenfield and something was happening? Wouldn't the city still be, liable? I didn't think you could descript that responsibility off.
I'm not sure what the history of all that and why,
The questions.
We be liable for the Greenfield.
No, actually, National Grid is currently financially liable for it.
Yeah.
And
I'm
if
talking
we,
about
and if we,
illness.
but, right, but if we give something to somebody as is with full disclosure of its state, then that's
Yeah.
there, that's all right,
It's their life.
Buyer beware.
as far as I know. But financially, National Grid is liable. Okay, you should read the phase 1 environmental. That was, it's straightforward. So, the next 2 items, Logan, this is, we have a local law repealing the charter provisions for governing, we've been looking at this now for about what feels like a lifetime. This is local law repealing charter provisions governing video conferencing. We need this in order to make this, we've been clarified the rules for video conferencing, but we're going to do it in the future by way of a resolution, so that it's easier, if the state changes the rules, it's much easier for us to modify a resolution. So next week for voting, we will have repeal of local law to repeal current, and then a resolution outlining the rules for video conferencing. And I think we've discussed this in the past, so I'm not expecting any questions. Am I right? Any questions on that?
And there's also, the resolution is just for the common council.
Right,
There's
exactly.
already one that's been in place for all the other boards that's gonna continue with that, so that.
We don't want to let them.
Next, so I need a vote on this. So, very small little thing, short-term rentals, need to have a local person. Because this is actually in our zoning code section, we do have to send it to the county and local planning boards. And they have it for a month before we can, actually take action on it. So this is going to be a motion. And second, please, to give for the council to allow me to submit this to the county and the planning board. Motion is Henry, second is Jason, all in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Oh, okay. Next is a, similar situation. This is a local law to amend section 325-17-1 of chapter 325 of the Code of the City of Hudson. This relates to an issue we've been discussing for a couple of months, which is the dock operations. Ken and I have talked about this at length. We have received from a member of the public a proposal to clarify that section of the code using data from 2008, which was reported in the 2009 study. And this particular iteration looks at that and then makes a proposal to establish a level of activity for dock usage in terms of number of trucks or weight. And I'll let Ken speak to it, but again, this is something where procedurally, this needs to go to the county and to the local planning board before any action can be taken on it. And so we thought that it would be good to get this process started. We can still amend it, we can change it, we can choose not to take any action on it. But the first step, if we, in the event that we do want to adopt it, is that we have to send it to both planning boards.
You're gonna need to take steps to actually just, introduce it as is, because I don't think it's been formally introduced.
Well, people might want to know what it's, but nobody has seen the rewrite. Well, we did see.
Sorry, well,
If
I'm
you-
just saying,
Okay, all right. So I need to introduce
either
it?
way you're introducing.
Okay, I'm introducing it. For discussion. So,
Yeah, I mean, the introduction is just a formal step you have to do.
okay,
With all the others.
well, yeah, the STR has been introduced many times. Okay, so I'm introducing this local law, which will amend 325-17-1, chapter 325 of the Code of the City of Hudson. So, questions, comments? Jason?
I went through this today. Usually when we get, things put up to the portal online, you send them to their, and you usually copy it.
Mhm.
I did not see this come in, I did not see this till today. helped thankfully nicely send me the, track changes version. And I find that the changes are extensive. So personally, I need more time with this because of the changes. And
We should probably.
Okay, so let me just. You will have time. The only thing I'm asking is. Submitted to the county and the planning board. We're not taking any action on it.
I understand. I think it's premature.
And probably one of the reasons that I didn't send everything out to everybody was in bed sick for 3 days. So, sorry. We can have Ken walk us through, the intent. And, you're not being asked to take any action on it, other than to send it to the county planning.
I'd like to know what we're sending, that everyone's aware of what we're sending to them, and then what we have at least a reasonable intent of moving forward with, not just send them something that, I don't know whether the council intends to move forward with it or not.
Go ahead.
Well, some of this, there are actually a bunch of legal issues that I'd actually rather address it in the attorney-client session.
Okay.
So we could do that for a few minutes. That would.
Okay, so let's see, can I get a glass of water and then?
Yeah.
Before we do that, because that will be the last item unless anybody wanted to bring anything else up.
I have a couple of issues that happened in the city that I would like to bring up under new business.
Okay, that's okay. We'll do, attorney client at the very end. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this document? Okay. So, thank you. In that case, your issues.
Thank you. First of all, Jenny, sorry, snake oil salesman was not the right word to use. But I have to bring up two things that happened recently in town. The first one is an event that took place on Wednesday in the city. Is everybody aware, the council members, are you aware of what happened on Wednesday?
Besides being Wednesday, no.
Right, well, it was the majority of the first ward was affected, some of the second, and then as it released, the entire city was affected. So Wednesday, we had the largest event, I think, that, and according to HPD, the largest event so far that the city has held. Without
At the waterfront.
it wasn't at the waterfront, but boy, did it sure spill over.
Right.
This was the third now annual cannabis convention that was localized at the Basilica and utilized the campus of Kitty's and the Basilica. It was an unnotified, the event organizers did not notify the city. It was a mass gathering. They did not file a mass gathering permit. And they abused the city property, the state property, and every parking space from, let's say, well, I got out of work about 3 o'clock and went down to the waterfront to do more work. And what I noticed throughout the morning was that the congestion on Union and Allen Street and Warren Street and Front Street was very high. So about 3 o'clock, the event, I believe, ran from 11 to 6 p.m. or it was 11 to 5 p.m. The entire waterfront from the parking lot at L&B, which everyone calls the antique warehouse now, to the auxiliary lot from the Basilica's lot proper, to the Amtrak lot, to the Amtrak station lot itself, across the train tracks to Rick's Point, the Dunn parking lot, both Dunn parking lots, all the way to the state boat launch was completely full of cars. I had never seen more cars in the city in my entire life. I have only worked in the city since I was a little kid. I've never seen that many cars. On a quick count, just shy of 500 vehicles.
Didn't you also put tents on our property? Did they put?
They didn't put tents on our property, but what they did do, Dominic, was they parked vehicles on our property.
Yeah, okay.
They parked vehicles.
I just heard there was tents on the waterfront. That's.
I didn't see any tents, but what I did see were illegally erected signs from Basilica all the way to the state boat launch. Sorry, the state boat launch parking lot. There were no less than 24 8-foot flag signs, which were not requested to be put on city sidewalks, not requested to be blocking pedestrian crosses. There were no fire hydrants accessible from the Basilica to the state boat launch. They were all blocked by vehicles. I spoke to the parking attendants when I got there. There were parking attendees hired by the event organizers, the event organizers. They were instructing people to park on every bit of property they could find. Every single pedestrian crosswalk was blocked. Every emergency access point was blocked. The state boat launch was half blocked. So, and the state parking lot, every bit of grass in that parking lot had cars on it. Every median was blocked with a car. Every no parking sign was blocked.
No cops around?
They were, after I got there and called them.
Oh.
They were not informed in advance. They
They
knew
had no
nothing
idea.
about it.
So why couldn't they just shut them down?
I know.
That's a very good question, because it was basically, it felt it was the 11th hour. Nobody really knew the scope of it until the event was winding down.
Well, is there a fine or something from not on, I mean, this is insane.
It is insane, and I'll take it a step farther. The only vehicle that could access the state launch and the state parking lot was a small vehicle. The HPD's vehicles were, those are small SUVs. And every vehicle there, a personal vehicle, yes, you could get down. A pickup truck, very difficult. I saw no less than 2 recreational boaters come down to over the Ferry Street Bridge, and a few turned around, and some just stopped and waited, because at that point, we started removing vehicles from the emergency access to the river. There was no way an ambulance or a fire truck could have made their way to an emergency on the water that day.
Well, that's the whole point of a mask, because everyone has to sign off on it.
Exactly.
They didn't, I followed up with them as well. They didn't do one.
Yeah, I have some pictures, and it was the most abusive use of public space that I've ever seen in the city.
What is the consequence to that?
That is a good question. It is only on Wednesday, and I've been asking a Thursday. I know Joe is aware of it. So the vehicles that were immediately blocking the emergency access to the river were removed as soon as HPD was notified. And then they started issuing tickets, which is great. That's basically all we can do. So the parking attendees were instructing all of these cars to park exactly where they were. On Front Street, cars were parked against traffic in the parking, in the pedestrian crosses. And they were also probably not instructing them, but spillover attendees were parking in the terrace apartments, and they were towing cars. Those are all permitted spots. Everybody's aware of that, and it is illegal for anyone to park there. So that is one of the issues with this event I have. And the second issue is this is an event promoting cannabis, which fine, okay. It was an industry professionals event. There were no safety checks. HPD was not aware of it. Coincidentally, that was the same night that the building at 3rd and Warren on the municipal lot was tagged again. It wasn't safe. It wasn't well organized. And I will bring it up at the safety committee meeting that until these two bad actors in the city answer some basic questions, we should not give them another mass gathering permit. They have, first of all, they have filed for dozens of them in their time there, so they definitely know better.
But they had it last year.
They did.
Right.
And every time they have a wedding that utilizes the waterfront, they file a mass gathering permit. So, and they have been in town long enough to know better. So it just seems, it seems typical for them to ask for forgiveness rather than ask for permission. And I think it's definitely an issue we should discuss further at another time. Once it's unfair to put it all out in the open and make any judgment without them being part of the conversation. But I just wanted everyone here to know what happened and we were very lucky that nothing catastrophic happened. If there had been a fire or bodily harm, the response time would have been detrimental to that situation.
Well, that's why this clause is, if your attendance is certain, you have to involve all them, plus, you know, on the state level, DOH oversees the rescue squad, so they have to be present, you know, pick the numbers or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely exceeded that number. Your head would have spun if you had seen it.
I'm sorry, I gotta shut it down.
My other issue, thank you, Margaret, is
Moving right along.
move it right along. So, in my ward, we have, and Gary, we'll have to sit down one day and figure something out, but we have been given a presentation from numerous LLCs owned by the same conglomerate, which is Ben Fain. And his proposal for the development of the South, I don't want to say the South Bay, but the marshland that used to be owned by Von Ritter and all the gobbled up properties on Cross Street and Tanner's Lane. So the previous administration turned a blind eye to what was going on down there, in my opinion. But a number of residents on Cross and Tanner's have in a very real way been muscled out and purchased out of their properties. So there was a rendering that was put online over the week, I think it was on Friday, that shows the rendering for a 150 unit condo complex, a grocery store, and something else.
We're all thinking about it.
Yeah, but the rendering that was put online shows properties not owned by that developer demolished and made into parking lots. Though the last remaining residents on Tanner's Lane are very disappointed because they're in fear for their livelihood. They are upset that a developer has put renderings forth, assuming they're going to be bought out of their properties and their properties are going to be pushed into a parking lot one day. There are only 3 occupied homes by homeowners left on Tanner's Lane. The 4th is a 3-unit that it was just purchased at the beginning of this the beginning of this month, and they have until the end of July to vacate. I spoke to the last 3 houses on that street, and not one of them is getting a good night's sleep. Not one of them wants to restart their life in another house. And not one of them has been contacted by the city in the last several years, especially regarding what's been going on down there. So it feels very much like, if you have a lot of money, you can kind of do what you want now in the city. And I'm displeased that feels like it's common, and accepted.
Sounds like a because buying farms, taking from people's farms, sounds like a plot from the movie.
And he is presenting them with what is deemed to be, well, what he feels is fair market value. So the other issue with that I have a lot of notes, but I'll save them for next week and maybe when we can get into this in more depth, but the significant portion of that property is south of Tanner's Lane. So the property south of Tanner's Lane, which, the last residents on that street were Stephanie and Keith, Bindlestiff, and they sold about 2 years ago, I think. And the largest chunk of that developed property was owned by Von Ritter. Does anybody remember the history of Von Ritter in the last 20 years? Well, it flooded twice.
Yeah.
And he won litigation against the city, and we paid him a substantial sum. I think it was north of $750,000, and this is back in 2010. The settlement was 2010, so I think this goes actually back to 2003, and then it was 2008, the two floods. We had Sandy and Irene. It could actually have been a different one, but it's because the city was at fault and the property owner was at fault for not maintaining the civil infrastructure. So the drainage did not pump appropriately. It still hasn't been fixed. And it flooded and we lost. So now we have a proposal to change zoning and put a giant 150 unit complex in a location that is a flood zone. It's in the 100-year flood plan. We've all seen it for the last 20 years. And it does not feel fair and equitable in any way in the city. And we also have a dozen properties on that street. I'm sorry, we have 8 properties on that street that are left fallow and vacant. They look like someone's living in them, but there is not. That's most of it. I'm pissed.
All right. Any other new business? Any hands raised, Logan?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I apologize. I was at the mayor's presentation.
Yeah. What's the question?
Not a question. It's interest in the Hudson Boston Railroad shop, currently known as the Dunn Warehouse. This is the last historic industrial building on the Hudson River. I've been looking into various aspects. It was, I think Christine wanted most of this. Did she go into the 1985 National Historic Preservation Registry options? She wanted all this, but not to read them. I'm interested in finding out possibility of authentically restoring that structure and the feasibility of how the city can benefit in terms of a authentic historic preservation activity in that, because I don't know enough about it. I gotta go see the structure. I'd love to get the council to approve Caitlin Bidet, who's familiar with the warehouse. She was one of the RFPs, so she's done 2 of them. I think last year there were 3, and only 2 of them that they looked at that they brought before the council. So, and then there was one before, you all know this. So, personally, I'm very interested in looking into actually authentic historic preservation, maybe National Historic Registry. Now, there's a lot of big funders, and I'm willing to do the work to figure out, how this could happen in honor of my mother, who was one of the original Roslyn Landmark Society historic preservation people. And Roslyn Landmark Society was the pioneer of authentic back to the bones restoration. There's water in there. There's a lot of significant.
So
So that's it.
I recommend, if you were not here for that discussion.
I'll watch it and I'll come back.
But we had a very lengthy discussion and HTC made comments. And I recommend that you watch that section.
I just want to respect my name.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry, I have one more rant. It's gonna be quick.
It's better.
The properties on the north side of Tanner's Lane, the residents that are left. Surveyors from, I'm just gonna say Ben Thane's, whatever, conglomerate, were surveying their properties for this project as though he was going to purchase it. I forgot to drop that little tidbit. That happened in the last 2 weeks. They were in people's back, rightfully so, they were given access, but they were surveying properties that he does not own to add it to this project. And also the Robert Taylor house is still sitting fallow and unfixed 3 years after he purchased it with a big sign in front that says project under renovation. And our city street on Tanner's Lane, where do you think it is? Removed. There is a chain link fence and a barrier on city property in the street, and our street signs have been removed there.
Cause that's not Montgomery, is it?
No, it's on the end of Cross and Tanner, so.
That's the one he purchased, right?
Yeah, that's what he purchased. But he took our property down and is, I don't know, it's gonna be an issue for code tomorrow. I only saw it last night, so I'll bring it up with Nick and hopefully he can have this fence removed. And at least a little modicum of whatever, it's happiness, respect for the people that still live there who do not want to sell it. Anyhow, sorry, rant concluded.
The next one.
So, yeah, I'll give you another one next week.
All right, so, if there's no other business, we're going to go into executive session.
Not executive.
Sorry, Attorney, I'm sorry.
No, it's a difference.
I know. We do not anticipate having any other business. So thank you all for coming.
Yes.